So, hello everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to the Out of the Box Developer. It was since a while we haven't run the session, but we are back today and full of energy here. A lot of great people come together today to talk a little bit about the development process, the thinking end to end. And well, before calling our guests, I just want to call my friends that were since the beginning in this journey from on the out of the box developer initiative and Java champions. They are community leaders and specialists. I want to call both Manny and Bruno to the stage. Hey Manny, hey Bruno,
Hello.
how are you
Hey,
guys?
Hugo. Good. How
Thanks
are
so
you?
much
Thank you
for
for
being
having
here
us here.
together. Yeah,
So hey Manny, how you doing, man? How you doing,
I'm
Hugo?
good.
And everyone here watching us. So thanks for being here with us, right? So it's great to be here with you. Send us your questions on the chat, right? So we can have a good conversation here.
yeah, and today we're gonna be talking about the development process because we have two very special guests from the DevOps practice, not just DevOps practice, they are as well very active in the development community. I will first want to call Elio. Hey Elio, how are you, man?
I'm good, man. How about you?
Thanks, Elio. Thanks for joining us. I believe that you have a lot to contribute here today, since we are talking about the entire development process. We have many topics to talk about, and yeah, I think it will be very fun to have you here and discuss about this topic. And I also want to call an AI specialist and community leader as well. And now he works at Grado. So that was great to have you. Eo, hey Eo, how are you, man?
Hello, good evening. I'm doing great. Nice to
Great.
be here.
Nice to have you here. So we have today. It's very interesting that we have many people, and we're thinking about how to connect all of us here today, because we have AI specialists, we have the community leaders, and all of us have been developers at some point in our careers. So what about starting with what I think is important to about thinking on the entire process of the development, the life cycle of all the development, is to have this whole understanding of the problem that we are trying to solve. I believe that a lot of people here that is watching us are developers as well, and some steps to grow and go ahead is to understand how the entire process works. So what kind of challenges that you have when you try to have this whole understanding? And before answering this question, I will just I just want to call everyone that is watching to place your questions, because today we have a lot of great minds here. So if you have any questions about this, there are great people to answer you in the right way. Okay.
Yeah, so Hugo, we have some people in the chat, right? So we see Juana saying hello in the chat, right? Saying that's he's from Brazil, right? So hey Juana, how you doing? We also have Nicola from Ukraine, right? That's you with us. So hey, hello everyone, all of you. If you can hear us, you can see us. Say hello in the chat. Tell us where you're from. So I see Oliver.
Hey, Oliver.
So that's hey Oliver, how you doing? So tell us where you're from, so we can have a conversation here. So who wants to start, right?
I think we should give our guests a chance. The first refusal to this question, and once it passes through them, we can take over from whatever they've left.
All right. So how about we send to our specialist on full development cycle, Elio. Come on, Elio. Tell us what is you're a DevOps specialist. So what does it means the whole full development cycle?
I think it's very hard to say like that there is first thing, it's very hard to have the single full development process across the whole company, right? I mean, at least the environment I work, it's I mean, we work with very different teams that sometimes have very different special things that you need to put together, right? But I think this is a very hard question to answer because there is no like a scenario or a situation. But I think in general, what you should do is basically understand the needs of most of your teams and trying to create a process that's kind of resonates across all the technology that you have on your company and so on. I mean, and even though now it's kind of hard because a lot of companies, even though when you think about the bigger ones, a lot of them are in this world where they have a lot of applications on premise, on cloud, and it's very a complex environment to talk about like a single process to everyone. So I think I would start from there. So trying to understand all their needs, all the requirements they have there. So
that's great. And one thing that comes in my mind is that our development process evolved a lot in a few years, right? We went from I don't know for everyone here, but we at least in my experience, we have to worry about how to deploy my application to a server that is somewhere in. Sometimes it was on premise on the same room that I was developing, but later it evolved to make it remote somewhere, and then it came. It was a monolithic application. We start to break it down and create microservices, and then we also have the entire cloud services and everything else. So I think it evolved so much to have one single person to get all the entire process, or at least to being able to hands-on all the entire process. That's I don't know. There are many people that reach me and ask me actually if they need to know everything, if they need to know to run Kubernetes clusters and develop an web application that is micro front end and I don't know whatever else we have nowadays, or we have some other we are starting to be the developers starting to be too much how can I say a Swiss chain that have to do everything, and yeah, that's some kind of questions that come to me.
yeah, I mean,
What do you think, Eyal? Sorry, Hilo, you were saying something.
No, go ahead, Manny, please.
No, I was going to ask Eyal what he thinks about the question and what Hugo and Helio has just said earlier. Do you want to add something to it?
Well, my vision is more narrow. I don't really look at the entire cycle in particular. I do think that the whole thing changed a lot, just like Hugo said. And ideally, you want continuous integration and even continuous deployment. You want, or up to the point that maybe you want a person to look at it before it actually gets deployed, but you don't have to. So indeed, if you compare the development today to what it was a few years ago, definitely a decade ago, you can do things a lot faster, and you can develop in much faster a cycle. And even companies that have massive software are capable of doing that. My own vision, like I said, is more narrow. As AI and since I've been more into machine learning and AI recently, back to like where I came from 4 years ago, two places where I can relate to DevOps or to generally to the development process. AI can nowadays gets into the DevOps and can help in different ways. I know a guy who was trying to work on some Jenkins plugin that when there is a failure in the middle of the night, it will decide if the failure is important enough and call him and wake him up in the middle of the night, or it can wait till the morning. But this is a general idea of things that you can do. And at Gradle, where I started to work recently, Gradle, you probably are familiar with their tools. They have an open source tool that you use to build it. It's sort of a successor of Maven. But they also have, or we also have, in Gradle offers a Gradle Enterprise, which is a paid platform that you install in your premise, and it collects information about builds, and it can help you accelerate the builds and display a lot of information. So there is a new feature that was developed, and I joined the team that works on that, where the AI machine learning basically tries to look at your past and figure out what unit tests and other tests have been run whenever you change certain pieces of code. And then when you make a new change, it tries to predict what tests are not needed to be running, and it will only run a very small subset of the tests, and it will make it so much quicker, because that usually the test is what is taking most of the time. And that is more for when you do it when you work more individually, or up to a certain level, when you actually go, when you want to merge, to do a large merge or a deployment, then they will just run all the tests. But this is apparently Gradle offers this to customers, but a lot of big companies developed it already internally. It actually comes from ideas developed at Facebook. Google does that, as far as I know. Microsoft probably, and now some other companies just offer tools to that. So that's one place where AI is added to. And just like the previous thing that I mentioned, the idea is to make the life of the developer better, make the developer more productive. Now, on the other hand, talking about DevOps, there is a sort of a new field that is called MLOps, because when you do machine learning, you need to use the DevOps of the company that you already have, but there are things that are on top of that. So you don't just check in code, you want to check in different data sets, and you want to run all kind of experiments and be able to basically keep tabs on them and be able to go and see what you've done and compare different tests that you did and experiments with different settings and data, and either recreate them or compare them on the fly. So there are new tools, there are new companies, all kind of open source tools as well, that offer you sort of augmenting Git and augmenting other tools that you would use for source control, etc., to do all the same thing with large files of data that Git itself is usually cannot handle it. Git has some solution actually, but there are other ways to do that and basically check in data and keep it and keep tabs on it. And data, basically, there are the data and the settings that you would use. And in many cases, you would use notebooks instead of just code. So there are tools that enable you to compare the notebooks with each other, because otherwise they're just JSON files and it's very difficult to see a diff. So these are the two places where AI and machine learning interact with DevOps from my point of view.
Cool. That was a very elaborate explanation, Eyal. Thank you for that. Building upon what Helio and Hugo said. I see Bruno's quiet. It's normally not the case, so I'm going to take the baton and run a little bit and then pass it on to him. So if I had to answer the same question, then going back to the question is, Firstly, the whole development cycle starts with the customer and finishes with the customer. And in this case, the customer on the right hand side or the left hand side is not the same as the customer on the on the left hand side, because the first customer could be your customer, whether you are running your own company or freelancing or you work for an employer. So it's the customer of the employer, and the customer on the other side is the customer of the customer who's using the services of the customer. And so the needs of both the customers is where the development cycle starts. So the customer's need is what you're fulfilling indirectly, but you're directly fulfilling your customer's needs. And also the same thing happens with the feedback. Your customer gives you the feedback that they get from their customer. So that's the non-technical outside layer of it, right? And then when it gets in the cycle, and your customer's customer is also affected by the lines of code you write, directly or indirectly. And your customer is definitely affected by the lines of code you write, the way you set up your infrastructure, whether it's continuous deployment and continuous integration. They're two different things: continuous integration, continuous deployment. Some people only do continuous integration and then do manual deployment. There are other shops that do CI/CD. I know there's a company, I don't know if they still do it, but I know Shazam used to do. There were the very few people around those times, apart from Google and the other shops, that had full trust in their test suite, and their CI/CDs would just follow one after the other. They hardly had any manual testings done. And also what's happening recently now is the shift left, where a lot of things that used to happen in the so-called DevOps world, which is a silo world, is now becoming SecOps, DevSecOps. But actually, it's coming more towards the developer. I have a sticker here, which you cannot see here. It says security to the left. That means it's now actually coming onto the tasks, into the plates of the developers. So there's a new motto that says, you build it, you ship it, you maintain it, right? So the developer is becoming everything. I think it's either Bruno or Hugo was mentioning that there are more tasks that are coming onto the plates of the developer. And so there is no separate title now called DevOps. A developer is also a DevOps, a SecOps person, has to know some elements of DevOps, some elements of SecOps. In addition to writing code, in addition to understanding the customer, in addition to using ubiquitous language all across the board, till the non-technical stakeholder who pays the bills, right? And who talks to their customer. And so the development cycle is very complex now. It's not just circular, but it also affects everybody. If there's something that goes wrong in this thing, in this and it can have a snowball effect if one of the cogs in the wheel stops. So I started off from very simple silo-based development environments, and I personally did not know the ubiquitous language that I needed to speak across the board, which I learned in over a period of 10 years. And now I understand the systems are becoming even a lot more optimized. But my understanding now is that the development cycle starts with the customer, finishes with the customer, and that's where the feedback loop is. Everything else we talk about that Helio and E also nicely explained is actually one or two levels of abstraction below in this cycle. And Hugo very nicely said that we're actually trying to either find or become Swiss knives. I think that's the word you were looking for.
Yeah.
Where you have lots of different tools in one thing. You're going to just use all of that and not become specialist in anything, but generalist, because we got to get the job done. And Eyal was mentioning about a lot of the ops tools as well.
Can you just make the distinction between DevOps and SecOps, just to clarify it for everybody?
Okay, so DevOps, DevOps and SecOps is SecOps is security operations. Like you're more focused on doing security related automation and security related decisions and policies, whereas DevOps would be more doing the infrastructure building, creation. It does involve security, but there would be a security specialist who the DevOps person would consult or have involved in the DevOps operation. But the DevSecOps is actually the DevOps person is the SecOps as well. He or she makes the security decisions, bakes into security stuff into the code, into the Ansible scripts or Terraform scripts, and is not talking to any specialist. They are making their decision on their own, and actually it's done in such a way. There are protocols and best practices to follow for SecOps, DevSecOps, that they don't necessarily need to talk to. They have to become the security experts themselves, or at least know enough to make those decisions, as opposed to in the past where DevOps would actually have a security person who would approve a lot of the things before it would go on board.
And actually, like today, you have like the DevOps tools in the market that allows you to kind of plug the security piece into your pipeline, right? So, for example, if you are kind of doing a CI and then you need to like scan your code if you have like any vulnerability, you can kind of call SonarQube and trying to get some security insights on it. So this is one of the phase that you can see secured in the CI pipelines. Also, there is one tool that's very cool. It's an open source project that's called OPA Agent. It's basically Open Policy Agent, I think. It basically it allows you to create a couple of policies that your pipeline in general must to be compliance with that. So it's a way that you can create some boundaries between your developer freedom and also and also everything that you must comply as a company. For example, I need to have this security step of run this code into an app scan or assess the scan, right? Which you do like a static security analysis in your code. So basically, today security is present on the pipeline itself, and so it's there.
So it is forcing developers, DevOps, and everybody in the pipeline in the whole cycle, from let's say some place in the technical layer all the way to the other end, to know these things, and you automatically become acquainted with it when you see so many of these things. Like Okta has now become the the de facto sign in many places. Let's Encrypt is used more or less by most of us. And you can LastPass, the list just goes on, right? So and a lot of the packages and scripts are now automatically having these, as you mentioned, scripts or components baked into them. So you're like forced to know what it is, and once you set it up, and it's all best practices process. So it becomes part of your infrastructure and pipeline, and within no time it becomes second nature, and you automatically start picking it up and just using it, just like you did previously with operating systems or running JVM applications, or running the browser and setting some things in the browser, or creating an account or a secure account, or encrypting a drive. And it's just become second nature because it's just made part of and parcel of the processes we do. Like having two-factor authentication has become the de facto in every application, and it prompts you to do that, and you end up doing it as well.
So I'm just gonna do a shootout here for lots of people that are saying hello to us in the chat, right? So I think that E Junior, I think is Everton Junior, right? I think so. So hey Everton, how are you doing? I think that's so. I also see there Silvio. Hey Silvio, how are you doing? Who else said hello here? So good to have you all here. So we're trying to all kinds, and actually I think we have to thank So Java, right? The Brazilian Java user group for hosting us. So we're transmitting on So Java's user group channel. Is there any others? And actually also transmitting on my channel. So thanks everyone for being here, right? So
thanks,
good,
Bruno.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Bruno. Right. Okay. So I think this is a very interesting discussion about going back to Hugo's question, right? So of do we need to know about all that, right? And what I think is very interesting is that the reason why we have DevOps, right? Is the whole idea was more and more the separation between developers and operation in two departments, right? We're creating trouble, right? Because then we have to send messages between those two departments, and more infrastructure and operations are codes, right? And I think this is the big change that happened. It did not happen for us developers. It happened especially for the operations guys that they move it most of what we considered operation in the past to code, right? So now with cloud computing, for example, most of the things are automated by creating, not only scripts, but all kinds of tools that allow you to code your infrastructure, right? So we call this infrastructure as code, right? And so because your infrastructure is now code, right? Then it makes sense that this whole thing becomes part of the development team, right? And of course, that's why we have different concerns, but in the same group, right? So that's why we call DevOps, right? Because the same group is having this concerns, right? And then we start talking about security, right? So then now we have DevSecOps, right? And again, right, security is more and more also code, right? More and more we have to code our security systems. We have to code our policies and everything. So all of these become code again, and then it makes sense that this whole thing is managed or is working together in the same team, right? But one interesting thing is that more and more we see companies, actually creating DevOps departments and creating DevSecOps departments. And then, we just adding one more department instead of we bringing everyone together, right? We just bring one more department that we separate even more everyone. So it's kind of a crazy thing. But for you as a developer, right? Does that mean that you need to know everything? Well, probably what it means that you're going to be working closely with more people, right? We never need to know everything, right? There's unless you're one developer doing everything, and then your project is going to be so small that it's not all of those things. You're not going to be doing all those things because your project is going to be small, right? But what you're going to be doing is that you're going to be working on a team, right? So on your team, in the past, your team might have, we have the database guy, and we have the Java EE specialist, and then we had the HTML and front end guy, right? So we have those different things, and of course, it would be good if the Java guy knew a little bit of interface, because if the interface guy wasn't on vacation, right, the Java guy could fix something. The interface guy knew a little bit of database, because then they could, if there's a problem, he could debug the problem all the way to the database. So we need to know a little bit, but of course we have different people in the team that knows different things. So this whole discussion, you're adding more people to the team, I guess, right? And so then we need to have someone that's specialist on operation. We need to have someone that's specialist on security, but we're going to be working together with those people, right? But unless we get this whole thing, we divide it. So we had development, we had operations, and we had security in the past, right? And so now we have development, operations, security, and the DevOps people and the DevSecOps people, and they're all separated, right? So that is not what we want, right? That just creates more confusion. So let's try the whole idea of DevSecOps and DevOps and all that is first to bring down the walls between those departments, between those teams, so we can work more together. To do the one thing that Manny said here that's extremely important, right? The whole thing, for me, this whole thing is about all of us taking responsibility to get codes in the hands of the customer, right? To get things that the people can actually use. If your customer is not using your software, then your job is not finished, right? Yeah. So I think that we're just kind of merging all of those things together to have, and of course, small teams, right, can use tools to automate some of those things. And one interesting thing is small teams can actually outsource, right? So I'm not going to do operation, right? I'm a small team. I'm not going to do operation. So I'm going to outsource that to the cloud server, to the cloud provider, right? And so that's some other ways that those tools and and concepts are helping small teams too, right? So that's just a so no, I don't think you have to learn everything, but as usual, I think you have, as a developer, you have to have an understanding of what happens all the moment from you writing your code or getting a specification, right, all the way for the user to get the code in their hand, right? So I think as a developers, it is our responsibility to have a basic understanding of what happens in this whole process. Otherwise, we can't be part of it.
Yeah, very well said, Bruno. As usual, one who says the last thing in the stream is always saying the best things.
Right. Oh well.
It happens to be you most of the time.
Okay, so that's a trick, maybe, right? So, and one thing I want to tell you guys, that's money. Look, there's no one better than money to find links for us and get everything we're saying and make sure that you guys have access to a lot of things. So we've been all the links that you see in the chat right now. Money is getting all those links and putting available for us. So thanks a lot, Money. I think this enriches a lot our discussion here. So thanks a lot.
All done on the fly, right? The research.
Bot is always working in the background.
Great.
Right. So money is our Google guy, right? Although he does not work for Google. He Googles a lot.
I'm using Brave actually just to stir the pot a little bit. I'm using the Brave browser, which is based on the open source Chromium.
So that's cool.
Kind of, yeah. Oh. And then it calls DuckDuckGo when you search, which again scans a lot of different search engines. So maybe the data is coming from Google. Who knows?
All right. Okay. So you're not our Google guy. Okay. Good.
You
are our DuckDuckGo guy then, right?
I am. Yes. Yeah. It's the default browser on default search engine on Brave actually. So
okay, cool. That's so awesome. All right, so
cool.
Just say hello to Paulo. So hey, Paulo, good to see you here.
Yeah, and I want to invite you guys to post your questions. If you have anything the challenges that you are facing during your project, during your routine, about all in any point of your development process, it was interesting to bring us here to the discussion. And at least for me to drop one more question or challenge, at least for me, I think Bruno well said, we don't have to know everything in deep or be specialists of everything. It's impossible to be such kind of person. But it's important to have this at least a knowledge about how things work and connect, because for me at least, when you grow in responsibility in making decisions in our projects, those kind of understanding how your company, if you are at a company, delivers your software, the value for the customer, it's good to have this kind of overview of every part that involves all this process. And one thing that comes in mind, what is exactly those important things that might be helpful for these people that is starting to grow and becoming responsible for such important decisions inside the project? What is the tips that can help them to start getting those overview, this kind of understanding of the whole process?
I have another question I want to add to that.
Yeah.
Do they actually teach any of this in school nowadays? I would bet no. They never did it when I was there, of course, but I presume that they still don't. But if you know otherwise.
Yeah. Good question.
So I want to just add a comment to this. You can only learn the game by playing the game.
Mhm.
To know the game, you need to play the game. Yeah, only the game teaches you the game. That's the better one.
Right.
So unless you learn to do it on the job, which is really the game, you don't learn it. So the university is really not a job, or school is. But it would have been great if they taught you these things, isn't it?
Right.
Well, yeah, well, at least
But
they
you know,
try
you
to
can.
do something,
you-
but I don't even try to teach you that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just yeah. So I just gonna compliment here, Manny. So yes, you know, I think that software development is a soft skill, right? That requires creativity, requires you know, all kinds of different situations they have to go through, right? So yes, we only learn to play playing it, right? And and I think that's one way schools can do that, right? And I think they try, right, is actually get people to do things together, right? Because you know the
Yeah.
fact that in universities you're supposed to create software and deliver software, right? That's something you got to do, right? And in lots of places you can do this with teams doing software. That's not necessarily mission critical software, right? But it's still software anyway, right? So I think it's possible to play the game at university, but I'm not sure if everyone does that though.
Yeah, one thing that reminded me the time I was in the university is that there's a topic about the software engineer, and I remember very well that nothing in that time made sense for me because we don't have the team, we don't have these challenges in our day to day in the university. So why do I have to follow such process? Why do I have to understand all these terms? And because it was so yeah, it's really difficult to relate to some real routine when I didn't have this life experience before.
Mhm.
Later, of course, made a lot of sense. Oh yeah, we need this. Sometimes it looked like a bureaucracy, but we need to organize ourselves and start to make sense. But in the university time, I remember that I suffered a lot because it was very difficult to to have this understanding.
So
Right.
they were
So
trying to teach you that, but without you didn't have any context, like where it's coming from, why you would need it.
Sorry.
yeah, a lot of times when you try to get people to do something that they don't see the value of it, right? It's kind of hard, right? So
Yeah.
Silver has a good point here. She says, should it really, right? I'm of the view that university have to teach you how to learn, not to teach you how to do the work, especially at the undergrad level. Okay, man, discuss.
That puts spanner in the works, like they say here. So that is stirring the pot even further. But actually,
Right.
going back to what Hugo said, what are the things we need to know, and what are the tips we can give? And I think both Helio and EL can definitely add a good lot of value to that question. And of course, we can always back them up with our comments. What do you think? Maybe you want to take a little bit of a try, Helio. You've been quiet for some time, so just to balance the whole set of 5 people here.
No, I mean, specifically to this university point, I think the comment that Silva made was great. I mean, it was I kind of agree with that. I mean, teach people how to learn is the goal of all university, but I don't think like there is a lot of university doing this. I see a lot of people just replicating some old practice when teaching. So it's not great. Also, it's very hard. I mean, on the point of the other question, it's very hard to teach people like how enterprise environments works, right? Because they vary. It's very complex word. Sometimes you work with a set of tools, and when you go to other company, you're going to work with completely different tools, which has a lot of different process. So it's kind of very hard to actually teach them how to simulate this whole environment, right? So the best options, of course, teach them how to learn, and how to figure out, right? And one extra comment that I would like to make on what people were I think Hugo was telling this, that you don't need to learn everything, and Bruno also told about this, but I think for me, the only thing that you need to know, it's like when you're driving a car, you need to know like the basic rules, and also where you're going to go with your car. So for example, if I'm a developer and I'm going to ship my code to AWS, and I know that my company requires me to pass through a MDM check, or requires me to pass through a OASP check, I just need to be aware that those are things that I'm going to need to be aware when I'm coding, right? So I don't know which tool, or actually in good environments, when you have like a DevOps experienced team, they're gonna take care of this for you. But you as a developer, you just need to be aware of your code is gonna go through those stages, and just be aware when you're coding, and you'll be fine, I think. So it's sorry, I was kind of waiting for giving those comments on those points, but I just think I needed to make it. So sorry to go back a little bit.
I think it's very well contributed, Helio. I wanted to hear those things, and hopefully this will add some more incentives to what Eyal might want to add to what you said, or anything else he wants to add in addition to what you said and what Hugo said.
Right. Yeah, I think that's your analogy of the car, right? I think that's an interesting one, because really, we need to know enough to do the things we need to do, right? And sometimes trying to know everything, or know a lot more than what we need, actually prevents us from doing what we need to do, right? Because for example, I'm not sure how true that is, but I hear, maybe Manny can talk a little bit more about that, but I hear that the training for a taxi driver in London is very sophisticated, because the taxi driver has to know a lot about the city, and talks about have to be able to be like a tour guide, and resources, and all that, right? So now, if you're a taxi driver in London, you might need to know a lot about the city, right, for you to be able to help people navigate the city, and help people go from place to place. So if you, as a person that would just want to, if I come to London, for example, which I did one time, and rent a car, which I did, it was terrible, because I did not realize the car was going to be in the wrong side of the road, right? And I actually entered the car.
Careful next time when you say that in London.
Man, I entered the car I entered the car, and I look around and said, "Where's the steering wheel?" But anyway,
unless you enter the car at the back seat where there are no steering wheels.
Right? Yeah. So I digress. I digress a little bit here, but if I want to do is get from one place to the next place, right? And I believe that I have to know everything about London to do that, right? Then basically it prevents me from doing it, right? Because I have this idea that I have to learn absolutely everything, and I have to do a lot more than I actually need to do, right? So that's tying back to what Silvio said about universities, right? I don't know exactly, right? I don't know exactly what's the best way for universities. I think that universities do not learning is one of the skills the university should teach you, but I don't think it's the only one, right? It's not about learning, it's about acquiring skills. I don't think universities teach us how to acquire skills, right? Universities are way more focused on creating scientists, right? Where they should be able to research things, right? And I'm not necessarily convinced that this is what we need, right? For most people, I think that learning how to acquire skills is extremely important. And I did not learn that at university, how to acquire skills. It took me many years later for me to figure out how to do that, right? And so that, I think, was a bummer. And so I don't know. I don't know exactly what is the goal here. But I know that if you are a university and you create amazing scientists, then they're not necessarily the people that have to work, right, and vice versa. So so I think that's a very, very complex situation, right? But learning, I think that even if we could have people learning how to acquire skills, that would be so valuable for our society in general, right? Because a lot of times we're just trying to get people to learn a specific thing, but if they knew that it's possible for them to acquire any kind of skills and how they should go about to acquire any kind of skills, I think that would be extremely valuable.
Yeah, I think Bruno, that's you hit the nail on the head. And for me as well, the school and university didn't work for me in the same way that I thought it would work. And I had to I worked in addition to my school hours and my university hours. I worked part time, not to make money, but to get the knowledge and the experience and the exposure from all the things that I was not getting in the university and school. Because schools and universities, at least the part of the world I come from, a lot of them can be very theoretical driven,
Mhm.
and it was never as applied as I wanted it to be. And even after you graduated, you had to have had, it's a chicken and egg thing. You can't get a job if you don't have work experience, but to get work experience you need to have a job, right? So hence I didn't want to get into that vicious cycle, and I decided way ahead of finishing that I do some work, so that on the back of that work I could get more work or another work, even if my university stuff didn't work out for me. And so I never depended on that. And for me, it was a clear cut. All the subjects that we were teaching were very theoretical subjects, like theoretical maths and all that stuff. And uh, Silvio might have a point that university job is not to teach you all those other things, but university should prepare you for what you are going to the university for, right? To prepare you for the practical aspects of life, like where you're going to apply that knowledge, and make you and give you those access. Like there are lots of universities that help you get apprenticeships and workmanship programs and work personship programs, so that after or during your course you're actually working somewhere part time to learn how to learn how to do to work and apply the knowledge you got from the university. So it should not be like only teach theoretical subjects and leave the rest for you to go and figure out, because that's kind of not, in at least in today's time, it's going to make you handicap more than ever, because the demands of the work world today, and it's going to keep expanding. It's going to be more and more, just like we were talking, right? A developer now needs to know many things. When I started my career 20 years ago, it was all silo based. You needed to know quite a few things, but now a developer needs to know DevOps, SecOps, you name it. And soon data and machine learning as well already is happening, but it's going to get even more. And on top of knowing how to write code, clean code, all the Uncle Bob stuff, you name it, right? All the books that's behind me and maybe more. So, like, what does a developer do? As you said, and I think, I don't know, one of you mentioned this. One of the things that comes to my mind when I think about this is knowing first principles of anything you do. I think Helio was mentioning. So, for example, if I'm writing code or I'm actually working in the infrastructure and software development and software delivery area, then one of the things that comes to my mind is 4 rules of simple design, or Joel's on software, which also has a set of 10 rules you should follow to see. It's like a checklist. Is your software team or your company you're working in doing all of these things? Do you have CI/CD? Do you have tests? Do the tests run? And the whole stuff. Do you release regularly? Do you have manual testing? Do you have automated testing? So, and similarly, as Julio was mentioning, if you're working on some other aspect, you need to know those things. And so it's hard to tell, like going back to Hugo's question, what are the tips or what are the things you need to know? You don't need to know everything, but you need to know the first principles of the different things you touch, that your work process touches. And you've got to stop there, right? Because otherwise you're just going to expand and draw yourself too thin.
Well, great answers here. I'm digesting here and thinking a lot of other things. I was just reminding about when how these new people that we are here in my company, we still do interviews and know a lot of new joiners here, and I'm quite impressed at how a lot of things they get with from the just bringing out from the university. Nowadays, I think it's very different from the reality it was in my time. That I think there was a lot of content already available, but it was not so common to get someone that already know how to do git commits and deploy some application into a server on the cloud and so on. There was no cloud in the in that time, but okay, but we can use as an example. And nowadays they are quite catching up somehow, but I'm not sure if they really have the fundamentals. And I wasn't the person that was talking with them directly, but what my colleagues reported is that they know how to do the front end, they know how to do some API on the back end, they know how to do git commits and so on. So I'm quite impressed with how people adapt, and we are with this level are starting to increase time to time. I'm sure that I wouldn't pass some interviews at my own company if I did at that time.
A lot of YouTube videos, I think, watching live coding and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Sorry,
so
Bruno, you were going to say something.
No, I was just going to say, because Oliver wrote here, I believe the importance of the university is to teach the basic. That's the thing that Hugo's talking about, right? So the basics are so many things are basic today, right? With the basic, we can learn more complex tools and process and be able to apply them in a proper way. And I think that is the big question, right? So what are the basics, right? It's very interesting that I was having a conversation with the guys from the Java VM during a JCP meeting a few months ago, and we were talking about the push that the JCP is doing to engage with the universities, and it's an effort from the JCP. And one thing we asked it was, okay, so for you guys, you're creating the Java VM, right? What do you think we need to talk to the university, right? What kind of thing that the university needs to teach to prepare people to be hired to work on the JVM, right? And it was very interesting that the guys were saying that, well, a lot of people imagine that we need people that know a lot of Java and things like that and APIs, and they're saying we don't need to, right? We can teach Java to anyone that comes to our team, but there's one skill that people are coming out of university they don't have, and that's very, very hard for us to teach. There is testing, right? So they were actually asking, teach people how to test, right? And that's going to make them a better developer. And I think this is interesting, right? Because there are some things that the university could help us with, right? Or whatever course is how to think as a developer, right? And I think once you learn how to think as a developer, then you can learn any tool to do that, right? And I think that testing, for example, is such a fundamental way to think as a developer. And it's amazing how many developers are not into it, right? They think testing is a secondary thing or non-important thing. And a lot of this could be solved at university. That's on the basics part, right? So I don't know what the basics are. I don't know what constitutes the basics, right? But helping developers to think as developers, that would be an awesome thing that universities could do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is like spot on what you say among many of the things that has been said. And it definitely is going to help everybody, right? It's not like asking them something more than what they would want to give, but it is the basics of what people are going to do those courses and what's required in the real world, isn't it?
Yeah, and I see Money put here the link for Joel on Software, right? Yep. That's so the 12 steps that Joel on Software had many years ago. I'm not sure if they have been updated or not, but there are 12 steps, right? They're so interesting and so fundamental. I actually built a company around his 12 steps, right? So yeah, I think that would be an interesting thing for people to know.
Yeah, I think just like the 4 rules of simple design, these 12 steps are still going to remain quite important and fundamental. Just like the design patterns book, the Gang of 4 books, it's not going to go outdated. Many of the the books that we have from the refactorings and all those, what is the one from Michael Feathers, the legacy code book,
Legacy code,
that
yeah.
none of those things are going to go obsolete, because a lot of those are the principles of how design is, like software design is, right? And that's not going to disappear, because it's not like we're not going to deal with software design once things get automated. And as things get more complicated, we need to know design even better. Eyal says he has to leave, but I was thinking you're going to add some more points to stir the pot a little bit. But you have been quiet for some time. You want to add something to what we've been saying, or have we been saying the right things?
Well, I think that I feel maybe it wasn't a bad thing, but I threw this university thing into the mix, and it became the topic of conversation now. And I hope I didn't steer the conversation away from what we originally wanted. But I think it is an interesting subject, and how it evolved around it. And indeed, I'm not sure what it means to if you ask me how you teach people to learn, I don't know. I think what Bruno says about teaching them skills is probably a good, sounds to me like a really good point. I think generally speaking, how I would see it, if there is a concept of DevOps or testing, they should teach them how to do it with one tool, or something that will give them the concept and the idea of how it's done, and then they can apply this and learn other tools. And when they go in, and they can, from what Hugo said, they try to teach him some things that have to do with working in a team and sharing code, etc. But there was no context to it, so it didn't make any sense. So they need to perhaps work on that and make more sense, so you will know what it feels like when you go and work in a company. And then I was thinking, well, a lot of the schooling now is done in a remote manner, but then again, the work is done like that too. So that actually, in a way, even if you just study anything, you just study remotely and you work on whatever project, even if it's a history project, but you have to cooperate with other people and it's all done remotely, that's already some kind of preparation to how you're going to work out there. But I think they do need to teach, they do need to teach a language, design, things that are fundamental, and hopefully that will take them to be able to apply the ideas further into whatever it is that is encountered later. So by now I sort of know how we got there. So
well, this is what happens on our session here. We bounce about across many topics, and we end up at the same topic because Bruno steers us back to the important topic about developer skills and everything that is developer centric. So we are never lost in that sense.
Okay.
By the way, am I right, Eyal, you still are lecturing at a university, or you used to do that?
No, not for many years.
But Hugo, you are lecturing in a university, or you will be, right?
I'll be presenting some content into universities, but not lecturing.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I got the information right, but seems it's different than what I thought.
Yeah, and now I'm hoping that my former teacher is not watching me.
You never know. YouTube recommends. Oh, Hugo. Oh, now Hugo is on Bruno's channel. Oh, and Bruno as well. Okay, I'm going to be watching this. Let's see what he says.
Well, it was great lessons.
I'm sure your former teacher, will be proud of seeing you online, because they might have not expected you to be a co-host of a show.
Yeah, with such great minds here. So yeah.
Mm.
But we, I hope that we have a couple of minutes as well. I I'm not sure if we will be able to extend so much. And want to say hello to Fernando. Fernando Correa da Silva just joined here as well. Hey, Fernando. Um, and just give some context, Fernando, that just joined us here. So I will go with a question. Actually, I believe that some people, I think Elio especially, you might have some your customers probably are people that faces challenges on this delivery loop, right? Delivery life cycle, right? There some challenge about what they miss about the skills from their team that might be helpful for people to be aware of. I think it was something interesting to know, to hear about.
Well, I mean, I think I would circle back on the same thing. It's like it's basically the ability to be coachable. I think this is the most important skill, right? You be open to learn a new skill. So this would be a great skill to have, especially like because like Bruno said, the technology piece. I mean, we of course it's great that you know the basics, but I mean, you can get better very fast if you focus on Java or if you focus on other specific technologies, right? But the ability to learn and the ability to be open to coaching, that's I think that's the biggest challenge, right? So yeah, I think those would be the main things. And one thing, man, I mean, if in my first job as a Java developer, it was requiring to me to learn. I mean, to know Git. I wouldn't be hired at first because Git wasn't there yet. I remember my first job as a Java developer was work with CVS, and then we migrate to Subversion, and we were kind of figure out how to how to work with this thing. But then, I mean, the most important thing at that time when I was starting was, okay, I know what this thing does, and just I have everything I need to figure out. So that was that.
Great. Money, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing for me. I was just thinking about 10 years ago, maybe even 12 years ago, is when I really got serious about improving my skills, and the whole excuse or interest or passion to learn Java actually ended up teaching me a lot of stuff. Things like how to test, that testing is important, what are the different types of tests. And it started from there, and I never stopped. And I started learning and looking into software craftsmanship skills, and refactoring code. I started buying books, many of them you can see on my shelf, and but also applying them. I wasn't so much of a book reader as opposed to applying these things. So it's like one thing led to the other, led to the other thing, but eventually I ended up learning the right skills. But also you have to be surrounded by the right people, right? If I hadn't met strong developers like Bruno, even though he was in Brazil, he used to visit, he used to come to online sessions. We used to meet at conferences. He did visit London once. And then I would meet lots of other developers through communities. So and all of this is outside the scope of schools and universities, even outside the scope of a work of a company like my workplace. None of my workplaces promoted this, apart from the ones that were built on the basis of community, right? There were workplaces that were built on the basis of community. They encouraged going onto the community and expanding your developer circle and meeting more people, going to conferences, pairing with a lot of people, going to coding retreats and things like that. But you had to put yourself into all of these places to learn all these skills that Julio was talking about, and earlier Eyal mentioned, and what Bruno is constantly doing. What Bruno is doing is actually bringing that to the developer, what the developer had to go and search for, right? So I remember going to a lot of code retreats, which would start 9 in the morning, and I had to leave 7 or 6:30 in the morning to get to that place because it was in another city. But I didn't care. I wanted to be with those developers and learn
Mhm.
those skills, collaborate with them. And some of the mind-boggling things I learned from them, you don't read in the books because they've read it on some place. Some of them even develop those skills. Like, I didn't know there was something called object calisthenics, and I did not know about Michael Feather's books, about working effectively with legacy code and the whole works. And once you enter that place, there's it's like a gold mine.
Mhm.
So that's my spin to what Helio said, and to your question. I hope I at least try to answer some of the question, if not all.
Right. So I'm just going to quickly say, because Fernando says, sorry I joined late, right? But want to thank you all for sharing the experience, right? I'll be on time next time. So that's exactly what Money's talking about, right? So yes, so just be willing to be here and talk to people and meet people and say hello in the chat, right? I mean, there's lots of people watching, but not a lot of people saying things in the chat. So so being here, talking to people, reaching out, that's extremely important, right? What gets us are we already talking about the books already? Because I was
I don't know. I just pasted the
yes,
book
because
that many just
I see the
mentioned.
book, the money.
Yeah.
So maybe that would be a good time for us to go around. Eyal has to leave. How about we do the books really quick so we can so we can start closing here and let
I,
Eyal go.
I think I haven't prepared the guest for the books.
That's
The
okay. So
part.
how about we start with
So,
how about we start with money then? Because money is
okay.
always has good books to suggest. So
I
guys,
actually have.
we
I
yeah we
actually
have
have.
we have a tradition here, right? There is the out of the box book, right? So you have a chance to mention a book that you would suggest people to read, and that would be a good thing.
Yes, so I mean, I already shared a few books and articles already in the chat, but this book I had for a long time on my shelf, and also a long time in my mind to read about, by Daniel Goleman, called Emotional Intelligence. I don't know if any of you've heard of this book, but it's a highly recommended book. It's a non-technical book. And it's a great read. And the gentleman is explaining about emotional intelligence, which is different from IQ. And also stresses on the importance of emotional intelligence. I've pasted the Amazon link, but you can buy an ebook as well, and you can buy it on Kindle. Highly recommended read by Daniel Goleman. I have another book as well, which we'll save for another time. But this was what I was on my mind since early this week, that the next show we go online on, I got to mention this book.
Okay, that's good.
Let me see here.
So
You go, Helio.
Do I go here?
Eyal, do you have any books for us? Bruno always has books.
I think as a DevOps guy, I'm gonna say the Accelerate book. It's a very traditional DevOps book. So it's basically talk about how you measure your teams. So they're gonna talk about like about the main metrics that you have today available to measure how your DevOps teams are measured. So so time to restore, and all the other metrics that usually we use to know if you are mature enough. So
I pasted the link of the book. I hope it's the right book, Helio. It's the Accelerate. What is that? The lean software development.
Yeah, let me
the
check.
Science of Lean Software Software and DevOps.
This one.
That's the one, right?
Yeah, that's the one.
Perfect.
You're the perfect with the links, man. So that's the only thing that I can say.
I have DuckDuckGo helping me. Amazon is really well indexed on DuckDuckGo. So you type a title and the book's there.
Right. So I think Hugo is putting the books there, right? So Hugo, should I copy or you copy? You're copying, right? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, so this book here, I have been meaning to mention it for many times that we talk about here, but I think that today we have the perfect setup for doing this. We discuss a lot about universities, about skills, about learning, right? So I'm gonna suggest Peak, right? Peak is from a guy called Eric Anders, and actually not Eric Anders, is what's the name of him? Is Anders Ericsson, is the other way around, right? So Anders Ericsson, and I do suggest that is the book that really got me to understand what are skills and how you actually acquire skills. So that's the book that I suggest that you guys read, right? So it talks about it talks about how the science of the brain has changed in the last 15 to 20 years, and what we know now today about the science of expertise, right? And so that is an awesome book, full of stories, full of practical things, and so that's a good suggestion for everyone.
Cool. Thank you, Bruno. Thank you, Hugo. Great suggestions. Helio as well. Eyal, do you have a book for us? Maybe your own book, the Python and
Yeah, the
genetic
only book I
algorithm?
can think of at the moment is one of the low-hanging book. This is for people who are interested. This is for Java developers who are interested to get into AI and machine learning and just get started. And so it's called something along the lines as low-hanging machine learning for Java developers. And it just gives you some basic concepts and some tools that you can start using, and they're all Java-based. And it could be your way to enter this world.
Right.
of AI.
So we can actually have that one on screen, y'all. Oh, sorry. We can actually have that one on screen, y'all. So so if anyone wants, because Hugo's book is also here, right? My book is here, and also Eyal's book is here, right? So you guys can get all 5 low-hanging books for free on that URL right here, or this QR code, right? So that's thanks for bringing that one, Eyal, so we have a chance to promote everyone's book then.
I also wanted to add to what Eyal has been shyly not mentioning is the hands-on Python and genetic algorithms book that he has written, and it's available on Amazon as well. I've just pasted the link, and I think people should know about it as well, in addition to the low-hanging book he has written.
Right.
I actually I think I have a copy of the book. Plus, I have access to the Git repo with all the nice goodies on it. YouTube channel. Eyal has done some silent videos. You got to watch 9 chapters or 12 chapters, isn't it?
Yeah, basically every program that is in this book there is a video of me running it, basically.
Oh, cool.
Of proving that it works.
That's nice. So those are silent videos?
Yes, they're basically screen recording of you see the program, you see me launch the program, you see what the program prints out.
Okay. All right, because Eyal has also some non-silent videos, right? Some music videos, right? So that one, if you want to put the links to it, I'll let him do it. But maybe you can search online, because Eyal has some awesome music videos, guys. Just so you guys know about that.
Great.
So I've also shared additional links to Eyal's book, which has the code and the video and additional stuff that goes with the book, which is not somehow mentioned in the book, maybe, or maybe it's mentioned, but it's not easily findable. But it's on that link that I just shared, and where I have documented and collected and put them there. So anybody who takes interest in Python and genetic algorithm comes across those resources as well. So something I would recommend sharing as well.
And so Eyal did share one of his video on his music videos, right, Eyal? So then we can talk about we can you guys can go. Actually, he's sharing several, so we're gonna put a lot of. So
Well,
So
the
Eyal
second
has
one
this very
is,
awesome. So yeah,
the
so
second
Eyal
one
has
is
this
an
very
interview.
awesome project that he gets popular songs in English and he translates to Hebrew and he sings with other people. Right? It's awesome, guys. You should take a look.
Right, but actually here you will see an English song. And second video is some interesting bird interviewing me.
Okay,
Interesting
all right.
bird. Hmm.
Okay.
Interesting.
So Eyal is going to show his bird, or maybe not his bird.
Somebody
But
else's.
before going ahead, I just want to we have some questions here on the chat, and I just want to thanks for Vana. She wrote here. I also want to thank you for sharing our experience, your experience. I'm still a junior dev. Without a doubt, everything you're saying helps me a lot, especially as I'm a woman who faces challenges in this male-dominated tech world. I hope we are able to help you, Vana. So happy to have you here, and yeah, please join us and bring more questions. If you have any other questions, we'll be happy here to help you to grow in your career. And we have also Fernando's thanks. Hey Fernando, thanks. He's thanking Bruno as well. I also take opportunity to invite you watch our next event on the YouTube at ITBR Canada channel. Yes, please send if you have any link and you want to share in the chat. Feel free to do so. And we have one question from where is the question here? Are you able to see the question here, Bruno? There was one question here in the middle of all the books that we shared.
Okay, so I'm trying to see here.
What is the best
Oh,
way
what's
to
the best
find
way? Yes,
personal career
right here.
mentor?
Just
You're
Oh,
already
yeah.
talking to one right here. No, isn't that right, Bruno?
yeah. So, what is the best way to find a personal career mentor? So, Dimitri, if you're looking for a mentor, right? So there's a few things you can do, right? You can reach out to people that you know, to people that you want, right? Even some Java champions on some people can help you out. But one thing that I've been doing, Dimitri, that's why Mani is saying this, right? One thing that I've been doing, Dimitri, is that I stop at everything else just to mentor you on your career, right? So if you want to do that, maybe you want to ping me and we can talk.
Isn't there a website for that? I thought I came across this website on Google somewhere called Code for Life.
Yeah, Code for Life is a website you can get on my email list, right? So yes, you can go there, and so Dimitri, I do talk daily about career on Code4.life, right? So if you want to join there on Code4.life, I talk about career. You can be there with me. Is that good?
Cool. Thanks for sharing, Bruno.
Thanks for the question, Dimitri. Right.
Great. So I think that's we had a session today. So that's we share the books and and we usually end the session when after that. So thank you so much, everyone. Special thanks for Bruno and Mani that are always here with me, and Elio that was our special guest, and Io that just have to leave before ending the session here. But it was great talk, and I hope to see you guys on the next session.
Definitely, Hugo.
Thanks, everyone. It's great to be here with you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone.
Great, man. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for joining us and supporting us. See you, everybody. Bye-bye.